Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim friends who are celebrating Ramadan today. So I have an esteemed panel, and there's a lot to be discussed, and we have about 90 minutes. As usual, on the panel discussion, I'll shoot few questions to all our panelists, and then the next stage I would like to move to the AI mode, that is artificial intelligence mode on panel moderation, that is allowing the audience to ask questions, which makes my job easier. So to begin with, I'll start with Kishore, since Kishore also has to leave a little early. Kishore, first of all, tell us, when it comes to Indian property market and Sri Lankan property market, still I think capital moves both sides, but I think still India has a slight advantage. Tell us what has to be changed in the Sri Lankan context if the capital also need to be favored for Sri Lanka with your experience. Over to you.
Okay. There's one thing that I don't think you can change, that's being the most populous country in the world. So that remains. India is the most densely populated country in the world, and hence you'll have a lot of demand that creates, because cities that are the main metropolis cities have more population than Sri Lanka. So basically that's the key point. So whether we could meet the demand of it, it's all about demand and supply, and there's more demand. So how could Sri Lanka beat that particular demand of population is to attract foreign buyers to keep coming over, and that's what Dubai did. Why did Dubai become a destination with a very small population? Probably not sure of the numbers, but I'm sure way less than Sri Lanka as well. And how did it become a destination? Because it's foreign buyers coming in and buying it. So one of the things what we need to look at is, we need to welcome these buyers. These are all potential investors who's going to spend money in the country. So India's market is completely domestic. There's a huge domestic market which actually has consumption. However, when it comes to Sri Lanka, that domestic market might not be the choice that you should be looking at. Though the density of apartments are growing, it's still not reached a stage where there is no space in the city, and hence your costs are going to go up, your demand is going to go up. So first step, why did India become a destination, is making it very easy for people to invest, including foreign investors. You know, India has taken off REITs at a time when people thought, okay, things were not moving in India. We spoke about REITs even before India, but even to date, we don't have even one REIT coming into Sri Lanka. And that pushes the demand. When a private fund starts investing, then your real estate appreciates. So unfortunately, I think we need to do a lot of regulatory work. We have come a long way. We have been doing quite a lot of work, even with the Condominium Developers Association. We've been pushing for a lot of things, including visas. See, we need to understand there needs to be buyers for the property appreciation as well as property development to happen. And if those buyers are not locally there, then we need to look at external buyers. And that external buyers requires comfort and ease of coming in. So visas, we've actually looked at the present regime actually came out with this 100,000, 200,000 investment, US dollars investment, and then to promote visas. So yes, so I think India still remains a destination because they've deregulated hundreds of archive laws which were there from the independence. The present government really pushed in to deregulate all the unwanted regulatory restrictions. That is something we've been pushing to the government of Sri Lanka as well. You need to do 25 approvals before you start construction, and that delays the whole thing as well, and then it increases the cost as well. So a lot of things, a lot of improvements. So why India is still a destination is a completely different market. We need to learn from that, but we also need to develop Sri Lanka as a destination. So I think if that answers.
Thank you, Kishore. Thank you very much. I think Kishore brought the sentiment on an investor's point of view, what needs to change if we are serious about moving forward. I would like to move to Saminder, because on the buyer's point of view, while the investors wanted to make the regulatory process easier, but when it comes to buyers, they also may have legal concerns, whether investing in the property market, whether it is safe, what's the legal framework, or are there any risk factors that they need to think before they invest or buy a property. Are there any risk factors that they have to be concerned, or overall how the legal framework on the property market helps as at now? Entire property with the focus on the condominiums.
First thing is that if you are think condominium, you have to, as a normal land search, that you have to do a one property type search. That is.
Top of that, there are a few things you have to think of a condominium, because most of the time that you are buying on the papers, that the property will come out in 2 or 3 years down the line. Because of there are few things have to concern. Number one is who's the developer, what is the background of the developer, and what's the financial strength of the developer. Because the biggest issue in the regulatory part in Sri Lanka, that when you are giving approvals to a condominium project, they will never ask from you, do you have money to complete this project? Because that all regulations only on the construction. Then if you have a 100% property, how many floors you can go up to? Then what are the open spaces you have to keep? What are the amenities you have to keep? Those things only talk in the legal terms, but never they ask that how much money in your pocket, do you have the financial background, those things. Because buyers must concern about the financial strength of the developer. That is number one. Then after that, say in the sale and purchase agreement, that is the piece of legislation that you have until that you will get the deed of transfer from the developer. Say there are some other countries you have uniform sale and purchase agreement, but in Sri Lanka there is no uniform sale and purchase agreement. That mostly that what the developer prepared, and you have to adhere to that all terms and conditions. You have to check what are the terms and conditions in the sale and purchase agreement. Those are the main concerns.
Thank you very much, Saminder, for shedding light on, like, if you are a buyer, what you have to think about in terms of legal framework when it comes to condominiums. Next, I would like to move to Mario, because I think it's also important to understand before we move to the next segment of the conversation, how actually the real estate market working is when it comes to Colombo. Whether the real estate demonstration, is it primarily domestic driven, or like is it like who are the main buyers, what are the profiles, and how the environment when it comes to the investment, especially on the property market?
If you look at actually in two phases, if you look at the global context, you should never look at only Colombo, because we are so diverse in terms of location. We need to understand the global buyer. That's very important, because each buyer in each region and each geographic and which point they are in their lives, their requirement differs. Now, for example, if you look at homelands on a whole, last year 40% of our portfolio of sales was from overseas. But we have segregated into multiple facets. That's why we have 11 projects, and people ask us why we have so much of projects. That is to cater to the market's demand. Now, for example, we have retirement for the empty nesters who are looking to come back to Sri Lanka. Then we have people who are looking into coming into the real estate sector into Sri Lanka for investment in small ticket sizes. Then there are people who want to live at luxurious segments. So you have to have, in terms of product portfolio, you need to have a good offering. That is one. You need to have, like Saminder said, you need to have a track record of delivery. When I say delivery, it's not just completing a project, but the deed is very important, because there's a lot of cross-reference that goes into purchase, especially from an overseas buying perspective. We have seen that basically when they come in, there's always a search done, and specifically looking at the credibility of the developer on a whole. And there's something that I would like, I know this was not in the question, but I think as a whole, as an industry, we need to go together, because you see there's a lot that everybody has right now. We need to understand there is demand in Sri Lanka, not only Colombo, but Sri Lanka on a whole. And unlocking that potential is possible. We are still not at a primary level. I would say we are not at a mature level, but we are actually at a stage where we can actually harness. We have seen from Europe, America, Australia, even the Gulf region, people are migrating back their investments. Primarily because two things. They want to make sure that their investment is secure and returns. So returns, they're looking in two forms. One is the capital appreciation. You have to offer them minimum 25% in 4 years, otherwise they're going to park their money somewhere. The other thing is passive income. They are looking at rental returns. You need to have a formulated regulatory way of getting that across. I think Kishore has been instrumental with the Property Developers Association in getting this visa sorted out. It's just that we need to position Sri Lanka as a prime residential and real estate investment hub. That is crucial because if you see our geographic location, it lends for that. Within a few kilometers from the hills to the beach, basically you're looking at about 2 to 3 hours. That you can't find anywhere else, and we are a tropical destination where Europeans love. And if you convert the buying capacity, they can buy probably 4 units for the amount they pay on there. So we are right now positioned in the correct way, in the correct place. It's just that we need to understand how to harness it.
Thanks, Mario. Thank you very much. So far we got the insights from like an investor point of view and also on a legal point of view and also in terms of foreign versus local, and as a developer, what has to be the way forward and the framework to think about it. Next, I would like to move to Virat. Virat, also tell us a little bit about on the demand side, because whether it's driven, I mean, what's the interest shown by the foreign buyers versus the local, and as a developer, do you face challenges in terms of serving both needs? Because Mario said that they have a diverse product portfolio targeting multiple segments, empty nesters to retirees to probably young professionals. So how do you see the demand side and how do you see the sentiments basically being kind of diverse across these segments?
I would, when I first saw this panel discussion, the topic, there was one thing I really wanted to address, which is that the entire idea of going for foreign versus local investors, it feels very illogical to look at foreign investment while we're looking at so much of our own capital, so many investors in this country taking their capital out of the country. That is what I think we all remember seeing heavily in 2023, 2024. Then I was quite happy with the last year so far and this new year currently, where we are seeing local investors come out of their shell shock in their crisis period, look for opportunities in the market. But even then, and Dhananath, you'd know this much better than I do, we know that there is a large amount of liquidity, a large amount of capital in this country, either owned by people in this country, either held overseas or held in very low return assets because of either because of a fear of getting into the market or because of uncertainty on how to get onto the market in a clear and structured way. I strongly feel that before we talk about foreign investors and how to especially attract foreign investors, we need to do more to actually make our own investors feel more comfortable to come on. And those investors, our own investors, are the first people to then invite foreign investors down. Just personally looking at the last week, whenever I've come across foreign investors, typically when they want to come in for any kind of larger project, they always look at coming on with a local partner of confidence. If there aren't enough local partners of confidence to come on for their project, it's very difficult for a foreigner to put their money down. Like trying to sell an apartment while your previous customer is cursing you and walking out the door. That just doesn't work. Then with regards to your question on the what kind of customers are coming in, even when we see, just being entirely transparent, when we see foreign income investors coming in these days, typically pure foreign buyers, we do see people going in towards tourist segments, tourist-focused projects. But by and large, what we mean when we say foreign investment in our industry is the diaspora market. On that front, I'm very happy to see a lot of diaspora interest coming back into the country. That's people who are deciding either to retire from those countries or deciding that the deal they got working in those countries, in the West, in Europe, in Dubai, wasn't as good as they decided to do and they want to bring their money back. But we can't take the fact that there's issues in those places to mean that they'll just park their money here. If you're willing to take your money abroad, there's options all over the world. Again, just to summarize, all I'm saying is, before we talk too much about what foreign investors need, I feel we've as a country not done enough to say what do investors need as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Viral. Thank you very much for those insights. Next I would like to move to Subun. Subun, what is the perception about the Colombo property performance? Because sometimes there are also perceptions that it is like, there's an oversupply, so the prices may drop, or whether the demand may drop because of the interest rates, and we are just after recovering from a crisis. So always when someone is going to invest or acquire a property, those sentiments basically come across. What do you experience in terms of sales and demand and in terms of supply, whether is there an oversupply or what's the sentiment in the market?
Thanks.
Overall, if you ask me, there is an increase in the demand in the market, let's say last year or so. And a lot of projects are being launched after the crisis, if you take last 1 year or 1.5 years. And especially this year, we see it's like mushrooming. Every week or every other week, a project is being launched. So the supply is also increasing, as well as the demand is also increasing overall. But there is a difference in this demand post-crisis. Pre-crisis, it's a very distinct factor. Pre-crisis, people invested all these segments that we were discussing. They were not searching a lot, doing their due diligence a lot about developers, but when the location is nice and if you feel the project looks nice, they invest. But post-crisis, it's like basically, I have to tell you the truth, the majority of the demand is divided into 3 main developers, especially the projects that are coming up in Colombo. It's not cheap either. You are talking about $400, $500, $600, even $700 a square foot. Still, it's selling at pre-launch and off-plan, what we call. But it's basically within that developers, four main developers. When it comes to the others, people are looking at deliverables, like they are looking at how the delivery will happen. So it's a total different market post-crisis. Demand, yes, there is a demand. Supply, yes. A lot of projects are coming up. And the other thing is, if I only say that 4 developers are selling pre, I'm not doing justice to the others. But what I see in the market when it comes to buying is, the finished products, there has been a growth in the demand again, because there is a heavy demand on rentals, especially when it comes to Colombo Center. So the finished product there, it's selling at a rate. But when it comes to pre-sales, people are very mindful, and it goes with brands. Like I heard talking about the legal aspects of it. People has to go and do their due diligence on the approvals and all that. But when it comes to buying, to tell you the truth, it's more than that. It's basically the brand factor. Brand factor takes a big chunk of it, and people invest in those brands even though the prices are increased. So rounding up the answer, yes, there is a heavy demand, but it's centered in that very niche 4 or 5 developers. And supply, yes, there is increase of supply. And again, finished products, yes, there is again a demand that is irrespective of these brands. Finished product, if it is good, if the approvals are taken, people will buy because there is a heavy rental demand.
Thank you very much, Subun. So that's the first round of questions. But now I would like to also open the floor for questions. Of course, I have more questions prepared for our esteemed panelists. But if you have any questions, please indicate. So there will be someone who will pass a microphone and then we can take the conversation forward. Are there any questions as we speak, or like we can give few more minutes to gather your thoughts? So till you gather your thoughts, I would like to again move back to Kishore. Kishore, now what we see on the Indian side of things is that there's a massive middle class that is growing, and even it is quite evident that when you look at the tourism numbers, that India is a leading market for Sri Lankans tourists. So if we were to attract the high net worth individuals on the Indian markets, do you feel that our property market is basically servicing that segment? Have we got the sentiments, the structure right to serve that market? Or are we still missing something? And if it's if we're missing something, what is it?
So I think the first thing, like Mario said, we need to promote Sri Lanka as a whole. It's not the developer, it's not the property sector, it's not the tourism sector. The moment the country develops or makes it more attractive, then everything falls in place. So the solution is that. Now getting back to what it is, I think India and Sri Lanka share, though in recorded history it's more than 2,500 years of relationship, partnership, and I always call it, I don't call them brothers, sisters and this, I say they're just twins of the same culture. The mother is the culture, and then you have two countries which are from the same culture. So you have a relationship which is very, very strong. When we say twins, the bond is perfect. If something happens to another, the other one feels it. The other advantage is we look the same. So when Indian investors or tourists come over, the reason they're getting more and more comfortable is they don't feel different. They feel, oh, I'm actually in a place where everybody looks like me. You know, not like if you go to any other place, where even Europe for that matter, you always feel a little disconnected because you don't look the same there. So that connection is already there. So number one, Sri Lanka has got a great location, blessed by God. We have, like Mario said, you know, like from the beaches to the hill stations, it's a couple of hours. And to do the same thing in India, it's going to take probably hours, if not days. You know, so one of the things that we keep pushing up is when somebody comes and experiences Sri Lanka, they experience the culture, they experience the land, they experience the beauty of every single thing that's there. So if we start promoting Sri Lanka as a nation, all the rest of the things are going to happen. People are interested. As you rightly said, we have the maximum number of tourists coming down already. And these tourists, now linking them to the property market, they're all interested in having something. Where probably it could be an investment portfolio, or it could even be I would say majority of the properties bought in Dubai, for this matter, is from the Indian market. So, and the high end. And there is so much of potential. And that interest, I could see it coming over. And if we just keep making things easy and promoting Sri Lanka, I think we're there. We're just there.
Kishore, just a quick intervention now. When you say we need to promote, what do you mean by promote? Like, do we have to be present in India, or like, is it like, how are we going to promote? Generally, what we see on media is like there's a tourism promotion campaign or something like that, where you go and say, like, you know, the same things that you said.
Right.
Or like, just can you nail it down to like, what are you looking at when you say promote?
Okay. Promotion is nothing but exposure. What has Sri Lanka been exposed to in the last 3 decades? a war which was prolonged for a long time. Everybody knows about it. So we've got great exposure on the war that don't go there was a war. We had a crisis which was probably more than what we felt in Sri Lanka. The people outside Sri Lanka thought, we had the country that was literally collapsing. Nobody is going to get food. Nobody was getting fuel. Everybody was starving on the streets. That's the impression the whole world got. And some people did it purposefully, thinking that we might get a lot of funding for that, but that didn't work out that way as well. So these are the things that we've got exposed to. So fair enough. We had crisis. Of course, media overplays it. They portray it in a way where it is actually very big. What have we done to change this exposure? In the last year, once things fell in place, everything was going on. When people were planning to have these MICE conferences and everything, I would give this example of NASSCOM offsite, which is NASSCOM is a multi-billion-dollar association of IT industries. SLASSCOM works very closely with them. We convinced them to come and have their offsite seminar in Sri Lanka, which will give exposure to Sri Lanka as well. On the day of the crisis, when Cyclone Ditwa hit, again we had a lot of negative exposure, things are bad and everything. The NASSCOM CEO calls me and says, should we come? I said, yes, you should come. You're in Colombo, you're not traveling anywhere else. But that particular message, the way it went was Colombo was shut. Literally nothing had happened. So when I say we need to promote all the positive things and also promote how to remove all the negative impact that's actually happening. It's in a globe, in a general picture for the whole country. I'm not talking about the property market where you could go and probably where the tourism could go and do some road shows and other things. But overall, I think we need to give this positive response saying that Sri Lanka is a great place to visit. Sri Lanka is a great place to invest. Sri Lanka is a great country in general. And every single Indian who has come here has never debated on that point. They still love it. They say like, wow, such a nice place. The people, and that's probably what, 200,000-300,000 people. But then we have millions or actually a billion who hasn't actually visited. And this is the thing that we need to get across.
Thank you, Kishu. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to move to Saminder. Now, in the first round of questions, you mentioned about the legal framework that the buyer should think about. Now, Kishore is doing a hard pitch on how we should promote to India and basically attract more and more Indians, which is, I think, growing at a rapid rate. We are expecting about 300 million middle class in a few years. But as buyers, there may be still complexities, especially when it comes to foreign buyers, when it comes to condominiums or any property in that matter in Sri Lanka. Could you shed some light on what are the legal pathways and the complexities if you are a foreign buyer, what you need to know and what things that you basically be aware of before you invest in the property market?
The law is very clear for purchasing condominium properties to foreigners, that the act called the Land Restrictions of Alienation Act in 2014. The act started with the no foreigners buy any properties in Sri Lanka, but there are some exceptions. The number one exception is condominium properties. That if you have a condominium property, it was in 2014, it defined the fourth floor and above. It's a fourth floor and above condominium. Foreigner can buy under two categories, special conditions. Number one condition is you have to bring entire money from out of the country by way of foreign exchange. It means maybe you are a foreigner working in a multinational company in Sri Lanka. It means that you can't earn dollars in Sri Lanka and put that money in that property. You have to bring money from out of the country. That is number one. And you can't raise money in Sri Lanka, that you can't get a loan or some kind of thing. Even after purchasing that property also, that until period of 5 years, you can't get any mortgage loan against that property. Those are the conditions. And then top of that, in the foreigners, then although if you can inherit properties, say that your parents are Sri Lankans, but you migrate to Australia or some other country. So at the end of the day, that when they say after their demise, that although you are a foreigner, by that period you can inherit those properties. Those things are there, and this is a very clear piece of legal. And in 2018, there was a amendment came to that act that this fourth floor and above thing abolished. Now even from the ground floor, if it is a condominium property, you can be the 100% legal owner, and the respective stamp duty is same as a local, not a single cent, is just 4% of the stamp, that of the market value that you have to pay. Other than that, no special taxes for the foreigners. It's very clear now, the law is that the foreigners can buy condominiums in Sri Lanka unless that if you have to just follow these rules.
I'm sorry, we have a microphone challenge, but just out of curiosity, what was the logic that the foreigners cannot own the first 4 floors? Because in my view, you really cannot move in a condominium like one floor to the other, or like, take the floor and run away. What was the logic, just out of curiosity?
Seriously, I don't see any logic on that. Maybe because of the scarcity of land during that period, the lawmakers thought better to keep the lower floors to the Sri Lankans and only upper floors to foreigners. There is no logic on that. But in 2018, that was abolished, and the condominiums that they say not only vertical, even horizontal condominiums are there. There are villas coming up that they say that condominium, the concept is if some property adjoining there are properties, that means a condominium. That not necessarily to be the towers. That there are many horizontal condominiums coming up like villas, that those kind of properties also now foreigners can buy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Daham, let me just clarify that particular question you asked. I think how that law of 4 floors came in, because we studied a lot and we were instrumental, including Virat's father, Hemukha, was also there at that time, where we actually instrumental in clearing that off. We actually removed that. See, most of these laws, there are old laws that were at that time, everybody learns from another. So our lawmakers decided that Singapore had a great law of how to protect the land, which was very small, and copied quite a lot of those from the Singaporean laws. Singapore had an issue. The Malaysians and the Indonesians, when Singapore was growing, the Malaysians and the Indonesians started to acquire property and land in there. Then they said, no, if you do that, then it would be a problem. Then they said, okay, if you build a 4 floors, like a house with 2 floors, 1 basement, 1 something else, and then do it, or 2-3 floors, they were actually taking over that and still owning property. So then they said, okay, let's make it into a condominium which is higher than 4 floors, where only you could buy. So that was the whole logic at that time, and hence it worked for Singapore. But then, of course, in Sri Lanka, it didn't make sense that if there is a 20-story building, why would you not buy the ground floor or the first or the second? And that changed.
Thank you, Kishore. Thank you very much for that clarification. Next, I would like to move to Virat. Now, Virat, the cost of the project is one of the key concerns, because when we did a study in terms of cost of construction, what some of the developers said was the price can be in fact brought down by ranging from about 20% to 40% if you have the access for material, the cost of construction material at the global prices. At the moment, what we see is it's ranging from 20 to 40% higher than the region. So wanted to understand in terms of the cost side of things, and we are also keeping the Sri Lankan cost side, costings aside, also there's a global crisis that is looming up with high energy prices, probably which will impact the steel prices, the cement prices, and everything there onwards. So what are the challenges in terms of cost, and is the numbers right? Actually, can you give a better offering if the cost of construction being brought down, and what are the challenges that you see And why it is not coming down? Why we are above the market rate compared to the global standards?
All right. So, just do I sound okay? Okay. There's a few different points inside there. One is the relative cost of. Is the sound correctly?
Can it?
One is the that's better. One is the relative difference in cost of construction in Sri Lanka as opposed to the rest of the region. The other is in terms of questions of how price fluctuations are affecting the current market and construction. This ties very closely to some in this discussion earlier again on the financial strength of developers going into projects, where there's also a third point that you also brought up, the tax element as well. Regarding first on financial strength and in terms of materials, one thing we can say is that these are challenges that the country has gone through several times before in terms of sudden price hikes. This has always come to a situation where when developers set their prices, they must always set prices taking into consideration price increases across a project period. This is why, again, when we look at prices in Colombo, those prices are not cheap relative to the region, and part of the thing that developers in Sri Lanka have to budget in is massive price fluctuations if they are trying to develop responsibly. Going on from there, in terms of taxation, Sri Lanka has long had an issue where for substantial parts of projects where we needed to import goods from India, China, the rest of the world, having to deal with the large tax component there, obviously having to deal with the more local things like that finally to the customer. At the end of it, I remember I've actually heard this in discussion with other developers as well. Over 40% of the final price of an apartment that we sell to you will come to taxes. Now, this is an inescapable thing, but if there is anything at a national level that can be done, if there is a focus on delivering more affordable housing to the market, obviously that would be a strong addition. Those would be my two comments regarding current tax element. Obviously, it is a massive cost. Regarding the materials as well, the only way a developer can handle that is, again, forward fixed contracts with their suppliers, maintaining strong liquidity to manage periods of fluctuation. These are all the same things that developers should be doing and can do prior to entering into a project, which any project that goes over 2-3 years or any significant period is bound to face. There is one more thing I wanted to address just from the earlier discussion regarding Kishore's comments on promoting Lanka. Again, like I said, tying back to what I said as well about what we can do to open the country for investment generally, not just thinking about foreign investment. In terms of promoting the country as well, I don't think what foreigners want from Sri Lanka is that different to what locals want from Sri Lanka, in the sense that we want places that are livable, we want beauty around us, we want easy to access services that include services in terms of obviously things like flights and easy investments and logistics, but even in terms of public transport, scenery, all of these things to make Colombo more livable and the rest of Sri Lanka more livable. That comes down to the UDA, that comes down to the policy that we implement. And when we talk about these things, they might sound unimportant at first. I'm talking really about cleanliness, aesthetics, and beauty. But in terms of development, in terms of where we live, those are extremely crucial. And in terms of foreign investment, I think before maybe large players might be looking purely at quantitative return, but at a lower level than that, people are also looking at places where they can live and work happily. That becomes a large part, not just about the developments and projects we ourselves do, they also have to be beautiful, but also a part of the urban environment that we create in Colombo and Sri Lanka. There's lots of things where if you take the Singaporean market as an example, standards on what signage is done, standards on pavement, standards on public property, there's a lot of discipline needed both in development and in public development, that right now that infrastructure is either there and not enforced or is entirely lacking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Virat. Any questions before I move to Supun and Mario? Please indicate if you have any questions, and we can, you have the option of shooting questions to our esteemed panelists, and I have the option of moving to the AI mode of panel moderation. We have one question here. Can we move the microphone, please? Yes, you will get the microphone, sir, please. Thank you.
Yeah, my question is, I would like to inquire about low-cost construction of apartments. Now, there are so many technologies in the world and so much of different materials in the world also. Now, globally, there's a concept called low-cost housing, low-cost construction of housing, and low-cost construction of apartments, which means you using something like more prefabricated material or something like that, so that the cost of the apartment might be low. Now, since we have gentlemen from abroad also, I think, I would like to know whether you have low-cost apartment techniques in your countries which are not available in Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much. The question, Mario, you want to take it up, and maybe Kishore can also add in afterwards.
In terms of low-cost housing, cost, especially the cost, and the perceived product is the most important thing, especially in the Sri Lankan context. You see, if you look at most of the overseas apartments, they use panels to demarcate their rooms and all that. In Sri Lanka, as soon as we go to do that, our Sri Lankan buyers will go and tap. There is no brick, there is no mortar. So it's actually a mindset actually of the Sri Lankan buyers also, who are, I think, getting there. But you see, if we bring those certain, I'm just only giving one small element. But you see, they want structurally sound. Yes, there is no compromise in structure. But you see, as soon as a developer in Sri Lanka uses boards to demarcate their living premise, it's perceived as weak. Even if we do housing, low-cost housing, I know the Indian government also looked at it and they are doing some housing. As soon as you put that, our mindset is, make a balekak. It's not that. So that's it's our mindset, which we actually need to, like Kishore said previously, like we are promoting Sri Lanka as a destination to invest, we need to educate our real estate buyers also, even at the lower level. If to give that, there has to be compromise, but there is no structural integrity in terms of delivery. It's just that it's a mindset.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer what Mario gave. I think there are products all over the world that are available for low cost. It's what you accept. There is low cost housing even in the Indian grant that was given. There's lots being built, which is very low, but whether you want to be in that or not is the choice of the person. So I think all over the world there are facilities. You can convert a container into a house. You could basically build something with wood, which a lot of things are not acceptable to the people, but there are ways you could reduce the price. There are many ways that could reduce the price, and I think the engineers in Sri Lanka are all aware of it. There's nothing that it's something new. It's just that what people want and what you deliver.
Thank you very much. And we have another question in the front row. Yes. Second row. Yes.
Yeah, my question is regarding the global competitiveness of the real estate sector. This is an open question for the entire forum. So now when it's come to the Sri Lankan real estate setting, we are stuck with the one is the tax structure of the country, and other one is the housing price index. So we are in a very higher level. So compared to the Dubai market, we are one of the main real estate investment sector. So how Sri Lanka can be a globally competitive real estate market? What are the strategies or what kind of proposal you can propose for the government as well as the development companies?
Sure. Anyone in particular want to take that question up?
Now, just acknowledging what real estate is, there's no point, you can't go and build a mansion in the middle of a wilderness. Development comes in to fit a national need, and that's part of, again, Dubai started attracting investment. investment structures, openness to foreign investors across different industries, making it an easy place for people to work in terms of easy tax structures, to open their companies, to deal with the global market. And as that starts happening, developers start to build products that suit that niche. Right now, both addressing the early gentleman's question as well on low-cost housing, as well as the overall market, we need to develop developers must focus on current people coming in, which is a heavy residential use in terms of the local and also the tourism requirement. But in terms of the national level, the biggest element would be first activating the economy itself and opening the economy itself across industries up to that global demand. And only with that can developers start looking forward building to suit the demand.
And another thing, I think you also actually said, what should the government do? Government should actually look at, I think Dubai was a great example. How did Dubai become what it is? If there was no connectivity with Emirates, which they made it into a hub, would this development would have happened? So we should have actually, we missed the boat where we should have made Sri Lankan Airlines to do the same thing what Emirates did to Dubai and create Sri Lanka as a hub. So connectivity is very key. So we went for a promoting Sri Lanka event in Gujarat, which has the most wealth in India. All the billionaires come from there. So Ahmedabad is the city. And for probably 5-6 years, we kept saying they have 8 flights a day to Dubai and 0 flights to Colombo, and which is so close. So that's connectivity, and that's what it does. So, of course, thanks to Cinnamon as well as Fitchair, they got together and launched the first flight to Ahmedabad. So the connectivity is very key from whoever wants to come in. If you're going to tell them that, we want to make this into a destination, but then you need to shift 3 flights before you land here, nobody is interested. So that's something that the government could look at.
Thank you, Kishore. Before I again go back to the audience, I want to move to Supun. Supun, want to understand in terms of the current interest rates, because there's a financial side of things when it comes to this market. With the interest rates after the crisis, with what's happening in the global, pretty much the geopolitics, are you happy with the products that are available when it comes to the financial markets to support the industry? Because there was a point that when it comes to taking a loan, to finance, it has been a bit of a challenge. And of course, we experienced, like after the crisis, interest rates were above like 15%, 20%, even it went up to about 30% at one point. So how do you see the context? And are you happy as a developer who is a key stakeholder in the industry with the financial products that is available? Not to the developers, of course, that is one side, but in terms of the buyer's side to induce demand.
Yeah. I won't talk about the project financing part. Post-crisis, yes, right now, for a long period, the construction industry and the development was called in the banking sector as a long-term stress. But last year, let's say, they have taken out that, and now they are aggressively promoting loans for the end users, and they are very flexible. And the interest rates also they are giving at very attractive rates, and the period also they have increased to up to about 25 years of repayment. And most of the private banks are now with most of the developers, even at the construction stage, by signing a master agreement and a tripartite, they offer facilities. So in that context, right now it's very positive for end users. And if you can show your income and you have age, you can reap the benefits right now. But about the fluctuation of interest rates, I can't predict the future. But for the last year or so, it has been very calm and quiet. It rather went down than shifting up on the interest on loans. But interest on FDs are coming down. That is always better for us, for the industry. Then people take the money out because no point of keeping your monies in treasury bonds and bills or FDs. You have to take it out and invest in more lucrative areas. When it comes to lucrative areas, Sri Lanka has very few investment opportunities. Like you can go for stock market, which is high risk, or gold. We don't have gold trading here. Then you have to buy jewelry or property. So most of the people go for property due to that issue. So it's a right now, interest-wise, bank loan-wise, if you're trying to take loans and all that, it's a very positive period for you to take loans and invest in projects. But I cannot predict the future. As you mentioned, the global scenarios, the new norm has become uncertainty. So we cannot plan for the long term, but gradually build and invest. So that's I missed out on one of your previous questions. You were asking about oversupply. Oversupply, I can't say whether there is oversupply right now in the market. It will all depend on the market activity. When all these projects complete, and at that time, if we have a lot of business activity going in the market in Sri Lanka, and tourism has boomed, and people are coming in and out of the country for business reasons, I don't think there will be an oversupply. But again, we have to see how the market will grow in the future.
Thank you, Subodh. Thank you very much. Mario wanted to understand, given the geopolitical context, because Kishore spoke about how Dubai was made to Dubai what is today, and now with the Middle Eastern kind of instability, there's also a lot of buzz in Sri Lanka that, okay, we can, probably tap that market and attract some of the investments from there. But again, the regulatory changes or the barriers still remain. Because if you look at the Dubai labor force, it's quite an immigrant population, and the regulation is quite flexible. I'm sure there are a lot of even promotions happen in Sri Lanka, even to invest in Dubai. So in that context, how do you see as a developer, if you are serious about really tapping that market, is it a possibility? And what do we need to think about it? Because then that means because you spoke about the need for the people who are investing looking at a rental income, and there are multiple aspects now. The market has quite matured and evolved. If you are serious about it, how should we think about a framework? Whether it's, Virat spoke about the cost side, and Kishore spoke about the regulatory thing and the investor's point of view. How we should think about the framework if we were to capture the geopolitical tensions which is in the Middle East for Sri Lanka to thrive?
You see, if you analyze the Dubai market, 80% of their transactions in terms of real estate inventory is expats. One factor is none of them can ever be a resident of Dubai. Fact. But you will see other developing nations, there are different investment tools that lend to get citizenship or permanent residency. Either way. You see, Sri Lanka needs to look at three things. One is our stakeholders need to look at a common agenda. That's where the government, the private sector, right, and our small-term and long-term investors as well. Now, for example, when I said government strategy also needs to help us. Now, for example, when I look at foreign missions, we do a lot of road shows. We have our bases overseas as well. You need to be present there. Otherwise, you're not going to, coming and going will never sell. But, you see, to date, we have still not got proper support to look at Sri Lanka as an investment destination. It's the private sector that has been driving it. So that's one. The second thing is, we need to show them, like I told you before, we need to emphasize the 25% 4-year return, because otherwise there are enough more investment tools where they can park their money legitimately or illegitimately, it doesn't matter to them, but to get that return. The third and most important thing is we need to showcase what we have on offer on a permanent basis. We need to be in their site. Meta alone, when I say Meta, Facebook alone is not going to help us here. We need to look at a progressive way of taking ourselves to the market there. Yes, true, we are a resilient nation. We had a 30-year war, but still, development still happened. Dubai will also bounce back. Fact. But we have an opportunity to harness from them, because you must understand 80% of the investment that goes into Dubai is not from Dubai. It's from other nations. If you look at, Virat actually spoke about something. There are Sri Lankans who invest in Dubai. Why? Why are we letting our foreign currency go, our own foreign currency go overseas? That can be invested in Sri Lanka, but it has to be positioned properly. So you see, there are nations that we have not even touched. If you look at the European nations, the Eastern European nations, we have never gone there. But if you look at Dubai, 30% of the inventory offtake is actually from that region. So we need to have a concise strategy in terms of delivery. Because you see, we can't just go and, if there's, for example, just an example, a bank has a roadshow, we go, that doesn't work. You need to have a structured, and the government also needs to have a buy-in, which I think the government is right now looking at. And that's an easy way to bring in FDA into Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Mario. Any questions from the audience before we go for final round? Yes, we have a question in the second row. Yes.
Hi, Mario. I'm with you, actually. We want to really position Sri Lanka as a investment destination. But then government sometimes, taking, some of the, different strategies which will not, help us. So as developers, why don't you collaborate and do a framework? So example, this recent renting, policy, which is not really workable as investors, everybody got panic. So, developers like Homelands, Prime Lands, and we have this 5 to 10 premium developers. In Dubai also the same, main few developers only makes the market stronger, and advise the government as well. So what is your strategy as collaborative mechanism?
Thanks. To be honest, we actually have an association, which is the Property Developers Association. Kishore also sits in that. I think Virat is also a member. So when this first the Parliament Act came, we actually lobbied as one. At that time, it was not us against our competitor or what, we stood as one. In the same way, we are actually setting up the framework for this. We are lobbying very hardly. I think Kishore is one of the forerunners in doing it with the other members as well. We're really trying to do it because you see, right now what we have seen is the private sector has been driving this right throughout for the past few years. I remember when I started real estate, the late HDA used to send me to Australia, to England. We were pioneers then. When we actually went there, nobody knew what investment in Sri Lanka was about because they were running away from Sri Lanka, right? But now it has reversed. The opportunity is there. We are seeing a lot of empty nesters wanting to come back to Sri Lanka, but we need to keep the status quo ready for them. And we need to have infrastructure in terms of, when I say infrastructure, it's not only the framework. We need to look at the banking sector, how we are going to, because we don't have cross-border financing still. It's a big bottleneck right now. But we as a developing association have lobbied with the private commercial banks. It was earlier 5 years, 7 years. Now you can actually go up to 10 years. But you see, if you're financing overseas, you can even go up to 20 years. So that's a mindset of theirs. So we are in the process. You see, change doesn't happen overnight. But I think, Kishore, you would agree we're in the correct direction?
Yeah. So let me actually elaborate on that. What you said is already there a decade back. I think it was Prime, Homelands, myself, Fairway. We all came in. As a founding board member of this particular Condominium Developers Association, we could actually say that we've achieved so many things as a group for the sector, not individual properties. So when the Rental Act came, we were the first to move in, and we actually were instrumental in doing this. When the investment visa things came, we were instrumental in doing it. Getting off quite a lot of regulatory things, we were instrumental. Last month we had a meeting with the governor. So it's been happening very quietly behind the scenes, but we don't really publish it on the platform. But what you exactly said is happening already, and I think all developers in this particular thing, like you said, the top 10, we have I think around 25 people who actually get together and do this. So I think it's happening, and it's been very effective, I should say.
Thank you, Kishore. Next, I think, any other questions from the audience before I move to Saminder? So, okay, we have one more question, but I'll, yes, ask the question, but I also have a question too. Saminder, we'll take both together.
Yeah, it's regarding marketing Sri Lanka as an attractive destination for investment. Now, I would say it might be advantageous if foreign brokering firms had an office in Sri Lanka or something like that. Because when we were living in Australia, I think there were international real estate brokering firms that had a strong presence in Australia, which I think head office may have been in the UK. Now, as experts in the real estate industry, do you think we should invite foreign real estate brokering firms to have office in Sri Lanka also, as well as having offices abroad in other countries?
Got it. Thank you very much. I'll pass that question.
Just quickly,
Yes.
it's already there. It's
already
happening.
there.
So there's no
Okay.
point in discussing
Got
that.
it.
That's there.
Yes, Saminder, just wanted to ask now, from the sentiments that has been expressed, it seems lot is on your side, in the sense for the legal fraternity, where there are a lot of regulatory changes being discussed, change this, change that. So as a legal profession, as someone who has been in industry for a long time and who has a first-hand experience on the property and condominium market, how should we think about the structural changes, and what legal reforms or like what changes that you recommend to do in the immediate term, if we have the option to pretty much move the markets with the current context? And you can conclude your remarks, because I think we are running out of time with that question.
Mainly the present apartment ownership law, that is the law that governs the condominium industry. We are mostly talking about the regulatory part, when the construction going on, and after that how the buildings are maintained, like that the management corporation, how runs the management corporation, how to govern the buildings, and so and so. But however, for protecting investors, there is no, even not a paragraph or nothing in the apartment. There are only small sections saying that if the developer not complete the building by 18 months, that you can go to the regulator and you can complain. That's the only provision you have. That we have to have some more strength to the regulator also to govern this industry, as well as that we have to put some protection parts to the apartment owners. Those are the things. And we know in some countries you have escrow accounts. It's a compulsory. In USA it is compulsory. Say that when you get money from the apartment buyers, that you have to put it to escrow account, and from the escrow account they are releasing only for constructions. That we have seen some construction stop or completely not doing anything. So that the earlier we mentioned that when the construction is coming up, you are not asking how do you build this thing. When they will collect the money and vanish, those things we have to stop. From the beginning of the construction, you have to put some, say, you have to have some developer registration system. Then you have to have some scoring system of the financial stability, and put it some protection on the apartment buyers. Maybe that we have to have some government intervention also on this. Now everything doing by the private sector, that mentioned by Mario and Trisho. So those things should be there.
Thank you very much, Samit. Thank you very much. Next, Subun, very briefly, I think there are three segments being discussed. One is people who want to buy for capital preservation, also people who want, buy for as a rental income, and also as a basically lifestyle. If you were to divide the market onto these three segments, how do you see the future? Because like countries like Sri Lanka, we also have, as you mentioned, the fixed deposit rates are quite volatile. It's low at one point, and stock market it's quite challenging. I mean, it's riskier. How should we think about on those three segments, connecting with what this side of the panel spoke about, also attracting investments, and also on the local context, because that means our yield rates also need to be somewhat globally competitive, because someone, if you are really attracting someone from another country, those aspects has also to be considered. How should we think about a framework to wrap up our conversation?
I can talk about the current market situation, how these three categories are being invested. So I think vast majority invest in the capital appreciation as investment. Second would be rental income, and the minority factor will be lifestyle or buying to live. Especially when it comes to CBD, Central Business District, all these large and very luxurious projects coming up, vast majority buy as investment. So most of these buyers will have 5 to 10 apartments in several projects. So what they do is at the introductory price, they buy it a very good price, and with the appreciation they go on a payment plan, and then when the project is ready for occupation, or when the documents are ready, like COC and the deeds are ready, they flip it. They sell it at a higher price and get their return on investment. So that's the majority of people right now in the market. And then it comes to a rental. Most of these rental investors will be buying the properties at a very later stage, especially when it comes closer to completion. So they buy it, keep it and rent it, because as I mentioned to you earlier, the rental demand is increasing and at a very high rate right now. The third is the lifestyle, or people who are buying to live. That has becoming a minority because of the pricing factor. Because right now CBD prices are at a very steep level. Even though we are talking about investing and promoting Sri Lanka, one of the indexes recently came. It shows Colombo city as the most unaffordable city in the world. So we are at the start, but we have become unaffordable already in the world. So we have to find ways and means of curbing all this and addressing all these issues. I think the panel discussed a lot of areas how we can bring solutions and what are the problems that we are faced with. What I feel is like we need stability in this country. Like global, we cannot control certain things. Now this Middle Eastern war, we cannot control. But there are certain things as a country, as an island nation, which we have faced in the last 10 years, 15 years, which we could have prevented. So a lot of shocks in this market, which we have to stabilize to grow and develop on the long run, which we should do. And especially when it comes to governance also, like masses, we keep on changing governments. A government will come after 5 years, we say, no, this is not the government that we want, we change it. So whether we are changing it with facts and figures and wisdom, or we are changing with our emotions. So we as a country should mature if we are looking at the development also. And so we need a stable governance in this country to move forward. And then we need open doors if we are to become another Dubai or Singapore. Singapore developed because they opened the doors mainly for China. So all the people who wanted to invest or do manufacturing in China set their bases in Singapore. That's how Singapore developed. And when it comes to Dubai, they opened doors to Africa. All the precious metals coming into Dubai, and they opened their doors to the Middle East, the GCC, and then to Europe. So that's how all the people started coming in. So we have to look at opening doors. The easiest is to open doors to India. We've been talking about EDCA for the last 10 or more years, and we have come to a conclusion in 2023 or 2024, but we have not actioned it. And we are talking about signing other agreements with India, about 7-8 agreements, and we have deprioritized EDCA, which is the main agreement. So we should open doors. And then we should have efficiency. Efficiency comes, like, for example, I'll tell you, ETA was passed in 2024, the Economic Transformation Act. And one of the main things in that ETA is to demolish BOI and bring another commission which has more teeth, more power, which even the investors will have one-stop shop. But we have enacted the act 2 years back, but we have not actioned. So we need more efficiency coming into the system, into government institutions, where we have to go to about 5 or 6 places or even more places to get the same approval being reconfirmed by several institutions. So we have to narrow it down and bring efficiency. And then if we want ROI, so we have to give ROI comparative to Dubai, a better ROI, or to Singapore, or even to that context, Vietnam, or these emerging markets. We have to look at that. So if you have, like we were talking about just now about the war and whether Dubai investors want to relocate to Sri Lanka, we can't look at these shortcuts. We have to look on the long run. If Trump announces, okay, the war is done, we have hit hard enough on Iran, tomorrow we are going to settle the war, people will go back to Dubai. So we can't run on those terms, whether we can bring the investors on Dubai to Sri Lanka. But we have to do all these policy changes, governance changes, and then look at the long run and develop this nation where we will prosper. If we don't do that, and if we are open for all these shocks every year or every other year, we are not going to go anywhere.
Thank you, Subudh. Thank you very much. Mario, very briefly, there's another general question is about the delay in delivery of those projects. Could you shed some light on, as a developer's point of view, are there any bottlenecks that generally the end customer won't see which causes to the delays, if there's any? I'm not speaking about like on your particular company, but overall as an industry, what are the bottlenecks that when it comes to the delivery delays, why is it? Or what is the other side of the aisle doesn't see?
Well, I'll be very generic here. Because you see, as a developer, there are 4 things I see. First thing is, during the construction period, we don't have it because we have our own construction company, but I've seen the construction company keeping the developer to ransom. That is something I've seen very generic, across the board, and they want more. So now by that time, probably 70% of your inventory has been sold, right? How are you going to bridge that financial gap? That is one. Second thing is, what I have seen is high gearing ratios by developer. You should look at your financial prudency of making sure you understand the threshold your company can go in terms of a gearing ratio. Third thing is actually your supply chain. Your supply chain has to be precise and properly managed with your project management team, because project management is paramount of delivery. Because when you say project management, there is supply, there is delivery, there is execution, all that. And the last thing is, Sri Lanka experienced after the economic crisis a big drain in terms of labor that we are still recovering from. I've seen that. I know that because we have our own construction company, there is a huge skill drain, which I presume should come back again, but we are having a big problem in terms of skilled labor migrating. That's the 4 things I have seen that the others in terms of the purchaser doesn't see. Those are the 4 things I've seen.
Thank you, Mario. Virat, now we spoke about 3 categories. People who want to preserve their wealth, want to rent income, which you spoke about, and at the same time who buys it for lifestyle. But according to Supun, it's mainly skewed towards people are basically want to preserve their wealth and kind of rental income. But ultimately, someone needs to live in that apartment, right? There has to be someone really has to occupy that. So where does that come from? And what's the importance of like having the economic growth and development when it comes to running this industry?
Something I badly want to highlight here, just to give a full history of projects. Now, I would agree with Supun that, is that okay? I would agree with Supun that in the initial stage of a project, and Mario will also know this, people who come in are investors looking at getting that yield. However, what I've typically seen looking at our projects, again, this is with experience, looking at the ones over 20 years now, typically over time, those projects, the highest yield is at the very start of a project. After the first 4 or 5 years, it typically changes hands to the hands of the final holder of an apartment, somebody who decides to live in it as a residential purpose. This works out because by that time when the yield growth has slowed, which it typically does after the construction phase, the price will become relatively cheaper for customers looking purely at a residential purpose. This is what we've seen throughout most projects in the country after a 10 to 20 year window. This is how the market, even if it starts at these luxury levels, eventually does become affordable for that retail market, and that retail market really does matter. Dananath, where right now Colombo is to South Asia an extremely expensive city with extremely expensive land prices. Colombo is also the only city in Sri Lanka that's really seeing aggressive growth, with all the job opportunities in Sri Lanka and basically crowding around Colombo. For Colombo to grow long term, to sustain that growth and to become a hub for South Asia as a whole, developing Colombo will be essential. Part of that includes how we develop the housing. There's 2 points I would like to mention inside that. One, in terms of the 2 connected points, basically addressing the affordable housing thing mentioned earlier, and in terms of the retail buyer. For the larger market of retail buyers in Sri Lanka beyond luxury projects, the most essential component of real estate as a whole becomes location, which the essential component of that is transport. Now in Sri Lanka, we live in a country where most people above the higher middle class are required to have a vehicle. This is also easier for apartments because for apartments in Sri Lanka above 750 square feet, you are required to put a parking space for the apartment. What this basically means is, to our estimate, an additional 10 to 15% in the final cost of a unit alongside everything else when you include the land cost. At least around 10%, less depending on the size of the project. What I would suggest is, again, to, in the long term, make Colombo more livable, make apartments more reasonable for that retail buyer, is improvements in the site focus on transport. So that includes developing around transport circuits, and that includes the government developing Sri Lanka's public transport sector. I would also, and I think we've discussed this with Saminda as well, strongly recommend that restriction on requiring car parking for an apartment at certain sizes be removed to increase the flexibility of the market to incorporate different lifestyles for different families.
Thank you, Virat. Thank you very much. Kishore, any final thoughts where we can position, and there was a geopolitical aspect that India also brings in, because we are located at a juncture where we really cannot forget about the neighbor, because that's a massive market which is growing up. If we are really serious about positioning and getting benefit of the current geopolitical kind of tension. Supun is in the view that it's a shortcut because we have to think more long run, which is the right way to think about it. But again, in terms of positioning ourselves, how we should position, and if we were even to get a short run benefit out of what's going around the world, what we should do.
So I think what Supun said and what you said, I think everybody touched on the same point. But I would say the first thing that we need to look at, just because somebody is bad doesn't mean everybody will come to us. We need to be good to attract investments. There could be crisis in Dubai, but there could be 100 other markets which are attracting the same clientele. So we need to just make sure we are good enough to attract. So I think with that point, I think that should summarize everything else.
Thank you. I notice it's only your clip-on microphone is working. There's some connection with the sound engineers. Anyway, with that lighter note, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wrap up our conversation. Please put your hands together to Kishore Reddy, Supun Fernando, Samin the Jayasekara, Virat the Alvis, and Mario Ofen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us.